Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's October 1st, starting another month. Can't believe September's gone by now, but the fall is rushing by, and we're moving along. But anyway, interesting day. We had a little bit of a gap down here, and noticed that after the big rally, we spent most of the day coming back to try to fill that gap, and you can see we ended up filling it. I believe we filled it. Did we quite? Let's just put our line on there and see. Actually, we didn't. We just got back and tested that low. We still didn't fill that gap. So we didn't quite fill it. So it wouldn't surprise me to see it a little bit more down. Now, it's not much of a gap, but it's still a gap, and generally prices will try to fill it. So this was one of these days where you weren't sure because this is really looking like a strong trend here, but suddenly it flattened out, rolled over, and we came back and tried to fill that gap. We got down to the original buy point, but there must have been still a lot of buy orders and people wanting to buy at that level because it rocketed up again. So it may take a little bit to work down there. We may come on down and fill the gap. We may not. But generally, that's what will happen on a day like this. But today it was early on. You couldn't be sure because this looks like a really strong trend. This is a huge spike up, and we went into a channel, and then there's even a smaller spiking channel right here that's working up, and you can see that looks like one of those strong trends. But it didn't last long. We got a little break there, moved to a new high, flattened out. It took a little bit before it started to sell off, and off it goes. So um, this, you might have looked at this similar to this pattern here, and if you did, you might have taken that trade. I don't have it marked, but it's a possibility. It does look a lot like a repeat pattern. So we'll put it there. I'll mark it if you notice that, because we're going sideways and then you drop down, you get a little breakout pullback short, and that's a fairly bearish bar. Really, this is your signal bar, but this one had the same thing. It had a bullish bar and then kind of an inside, but these have matching highs where this one doesn't quite, but this one's creeping down that trend line. So it is also off that trend line, but it's a little breakout pullback short off of this, and it looks a little bit like this pattern over here. So I'll mark it if you saw it that way. Otherwise, you leave it alone because it's not a perfect setup by any means. So well, let's talk about the trades. There's not a lot of them today. There were a few to the upside early, and then there were a couple to the downside. And you just didn't really get a lot of opportunities to get in this thing to the short side. So, but let's back out just a hair. We'll talk about these and we'll wrap the day up. When I came in, prices had been going sideways and we're starting this little downtrend, and then we had this little failed break lower. It never broke higher, and it ends up giving you a breakout pullback short. Well, that's probably what you would expect, because notice this little short term. I wouldn't even call that short term. It's just a tight channel, and then you get a break and you move up to a new high, and then you start going sideways, and then you sell off. So that's kind of what you would expect to happen. Um, so that was a good short in my opinion. Notice that this was really a failed break, failed second entry long too, but it's just basically sideways. And I wouldn't really look at that. If you start trying to find your failures in here, you're going to get tripped up on both ways because there's failures on both sides. So really what you want to look at is it's just a breakout pullback short when you're looking for a possible reversal anyway after this channel here. And it turns out we bounce here, and notice the reversal pattern. You got a new low here. You get a first entry, and I would have drawn my trend line right up through there. And you get a second entry. Actually, you got your new low. You get a first entry short. You're moving up. You get a second. You actually get a second entry short right there that jogs back up. But I wouldn't take that one. I'd wait and see if it comes on back, because that's not much of a. It's more sideways stuff right there, but it does come on back, and it bounces off that trend line and gives you a nice bullish bar. I like going long there, and you might let it break lower and drop a limit order back where it would have broke above this bar, just give you a little better entry, and you most likely would have got filled. But either way, I like that one to the upside. That's your third bounce in a row. You bounce 1, 2, 3 times off that trend line, and you got another bullish bar. Plus, it's somewhat of a failed second entry short too. I mean, there's 2 legs up right there, and technically it failed right here, but I wouldn't take that one just simply because you're not back to the EMA, you're not back to the trend line, and it looks like, you know, there might even be something working up through here, a little different line, but I'd just leave that one alone. But when it bounced off that trend line again, I'd go ahead and take it. So, and that's also a little bit of a congestion area, so you got a lot of bars stacked up sideways, so you could look at that as a failed break lower too. And this one takes off, and then you got a new swing low there because it's lower than that one, and you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry right there. You do get a third touch of that possible little spike in channel right there, but that's more sideways at this point, so it's not really, I'd wait on the failed second entry short, especially going long at the highs. But when it turned down there and gives you a third touch of that trend line, gives you a failed second entry short. When it broke higher here, it was a failed second entry short. I'd take that one. You still end up getting a little more sideways action, but it's still working higher, and that's the way it looks like one of those strong trends, and so you don't know how far this one's going to go. A lot of times these will go a good ways. Didn't today, but that's the way it goes. So then you can see that darker channel. We're working on both sides, and you get a little break here. Again, it's kind of sideways action. Not a very good signal bar there, and by the time you get this one, you don't really have enough room to get out either way. And then you get a little failed break higher. This one's tempting to go short, especially being off the midline there. But with this being looking like a strong trend, I wouldn't be taking any shorts. I'd just sit tight. And of course, you know, it turns out to be a pretty good trade. And then we just start going sideways again. And the overall trend had been up, and this was the first break outside of this 2-tiered channel from the spiking channel. So you're still looking for prices to try to test that high. So I like this one right here. You got plenty of room to get out before getting back to the highs, and so that's a nice easy scalp. And then there's a short here, but you don't have enough room on either way this works. And then of course we talked about this one, your little breakout pullback short that looks like a repeat pattern over here, and it is a failed second entry long too, technically, because you got a new high right here, and then a first entry and a second entry. There's a double top there, so you could count that as one high, and then a first entry right there as well. And if it would have broke higher here, I would have liked going short there, but that's just too sideways to be trying to go short out of. And then this bar is awfully big, and you're starting to get away from the EMA. It would have worked, but you can't risk that not knowing ahead of time. You know, you got to follow the rules, and the rules will tell you that a lot of times it'll break out and come back and stop you out. So it's just not a good entry. And if you didn't see this as kind of a repeat pattern, I'd scratch that trade too. So, but if you did, it turns out to be a pretty nice move. And then we come back and we run back to the trend line. And again, we're really kind of going sideways here, and you get a little failed break and a big bearish bar. So I like going short right there. You got plenty of room to get out, and this is off that trend line too, so it may just take on off. And of course it does. It runs all the way down to the end and bounces. And again, we start kind of going sideways again. There's a second entry short right here, and this is a good example. We're not back to that trend line, and if you'd have taken that, you'd have got burned right there. And then there's another one right here that's not back to the trend line again. And this one would have worked, but you don't have a very good signal bar, but it's not back to the trend line. It is, both of these are at least back to the EMA, but after that big move down, I'd look, and it coming off the lows, especially with an overshoot here. And we've really already had a break up here, but sometimes, you know, when it breaks that earlier and it keeps on, the trend channel may continue on. Especially by this point in time, I would be suspecting that we're trying to fill the gap, trade, you know, trending down this hard and this long. So I like that one, and I'd have to skip these. And you might have taken that one if, you know, it's right after 2 o'clock hour, but it's a big bearish bar right there near the key entry point, especially this one. This one, you know, you're getting on towards 230 now, so It's a little more leery. I'm a little more leery of taking that one. But if I was going to take one of these right after 2 o'clock, you might, you could probably argue that you might take either one of those. This one's a little more risky. It's a first entry. But this one's a second entry. It's a lower high basically, and it is a first entry, second entry, counting off the lows. So, you may take that trade. That's only about 217, 218. So, if you get one right into that 2 o'clock hour within a quarter of an hour or so, and it's a good setup, I'm not against taking it. But generally, I just don't like to trade the afternoon really, especially after 2 o'clock. So that's kind of my cutoff rule. And I generally don't talk much about the trades after 2 o'clock either for that reason. But there were a few trades today, a couple of pretty good ones. But there just weren't a lot of there weren't a lot of trades today, and we spent the majority of the day really from 9 o'clock on. We were in a downtrend. When it started out, looking like it was going to be a really strong, but we really didn't start going lower till 10:30, almost 11 o'clock, because this is just sideways, all of this, and a lot of times you'll see that before it'll go higher. So we really didn't know we were going to start trending lower till right in here. So anyway, that's what I saw today. Not the greatest day, but not a bad day either. So considering, but we'll be back to do it tomorrow. I'm going to wrap it up for today. Hope you had a good trading day. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.